And I get a phone call, Vic, do you think you could learn to play fiddle? I was like, yeah. So I went to my high school, borrowed a violin. I researched the top 3 fiddle tunes.
Okay.
One was Orange Blossom Special. One was Devil Went Down to Georgia. And I forgot what the third one was. It might have been like, well, you put down your fiddle and you put down your bow, pick up your shoes and you throw it on the floor.
Hey, I'm Russ from AMS. Today I got the opportunity to sit down with bass legend Victor Wooten to discuss music as a language, the importance of knowing yourself, and his Wooten Woods music camp. Hope you all enjoy. Well, first off, Victor, we really appreciate you joining us
Thank
here
you,
for
Russ.
the time.
Happy to be here always.
The first question I wanted to kind of hit you with is a question that when I was a kid, I always got excited when it was asked to me. It was, what are you listening to lately? Like, what is it that gets you excited at this point?
Well, there's a lot of things that get me excited. There's probably not things that don't really get me excited. But lately I've been listening to Mike Stern's music because I'm here in New York City playing his music. And when I have to learn something quickly,
sure,
it's all I'm listening to.
Day in, day out.
It's going to sound mean, but it's helpful. I want to get to the place where I'm sick of this music, because I know it so well.
Yep. And
then once we get to play it, like I get to play it with Mike Stern, with Dennis Chambers on drums, Bob Franceschini on sax. When I play it, it's much more fun. It'd be like if you sent me these questions, I might read them over so I know what they are, but it's different when we sit in front of each other.
It's more natural dialogue.
Yeah, it's more natural and more fun because
Sure.
it's a real interaction. So I've been listening a lot to Dennis, but there are a lot of new bands that are out. There's so much. When I was young, you only heard, I would say the best.
Yeah.
The radio only played what was really good. Now there's everything.
Sure.
Stuff that you love, stuff that you hate, and I like to listen to it all. Because I think if I only listen to the things that I enjoy, I'm missing half of the picture.
So how do you get introduced to these kind of different artists that maybe are outside of your normal radius? Your kids?
My kids, the kids at my camps, the kids that I get to work with at Berkeley.
Sure.
I get to hear their music. Somebody says, yeah, I'm working on something new. I'm like, send it to me. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
So I get turned on to a lot of new things, a lot of great bands. Corey Wong, who I knew from earlier days. Now he's got his own band.
Yeah.
I get to hear that. I get invited on tour, so I get to hear what he's doing, and then the Fearless Flyers and all these spin-off things that he does. I get to meet and play with his guys, like, Nate Smith on drums.
Oh my gosh.
Guitar, of course, Corey's drummer. So, there's no way not to be turned on to new things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it keeps it interesting and it keeps it exciting.
Totally.
So when you're kind of discovering this music and you're going down the path for like Mike Stern right now for the show, and you're eat, sleep, and you're breathing the songs, and then you go, would you say that kind of enables you for that discussion, that when you're doing it, you're not really thinking about the sections or what you're doing next? Are you kind of breathing it at that point?
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope so, but sometimes you'll get there and he throws a new song at you.
On the fly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that happens sometimes. Hey, we're going to do this song too. So okay.
That you may or may not know.
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe I played it 10 years ago. Maybe it's brand new. It's from my new record.
Sure. Wow.
My answer is okay.
Let's go.
That's why you called me.
Yeah.
You didn't call me to say, I can't do that. I say,
What
okay.
goes through your head process though at that point? Like, is there initial response one of, oh, geez, like I don't like.
No.
Or is it just let's do it?
Let's do it. Totally. Let's do it. It's a challenge. I know the other stuff you sent me. Let's challenge me. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, because, Mike is great, but he didn't invent new notes. Like, we got 12 notes. He didn't invent a 13th one that I got to learn. It's the same notes.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be new chords. I just have to learn this new formation. I have to learn like a new directions. And I start, let me hear it.
Yeah.
Let me hear it. And I get a sense of what's happening. I say, oh, okay, this is pretty, oh, wait a minute, what's that? And if Mike is there, it's even easier. Let's play it. He'll sit down with me or whatever. But I love these challenges. I love these kind of challenges. I get to do what I do all the time.
Right.
But to do something I haven't done, a new song, challenge.
See, I like the way you always kind of pull it back to conversations, to dialogues. And just like the notes, the music is no different than us sitting here and having that conversation. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Sure. For me, like you may, For the most part, if you ask me questions, I've probably had those questions before.
Sure.
So the answers are not that difficult. My response will be same but different. But sometimes you throw me a different question, and I love it. It's like, oh, you're making me think a little bit.
Yeah.
To me, that's fun. It might make some people nervous.
Yeah.
I love it because I know that it's okay if my answer is I don't know. Or if Mike gives me this new song, I say, Mike, I don't think I can do that. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
We have enough stuff, you know. But music is just, it's talking, right? I don't know what to say until I hear what you said, right? When we play or when we're talking to each other, we're looking at each other, right? I'm not looking at my mouth, my instrument, where a lot of people play like this. I look at you if we're playing together.
Yeah.
So for me, I literally treat it like a conversation because that's what we're doing. We're conversing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say to the musician who does have, like, say, insecurities, and they go in, they feel maybe ill-equipped, or they feel like they're, you know, intimidated
Sure.
by what's your approach or your kind of words of encouragement for those who enter those situations and almost become their own worst enemy?
Well, we are, right? People don't show up to not like you.
Yeah.
People are at your concerts because they like you. The people who don't like you aren't there.
Yeah.
But the one thing I tell them is it's okay to feel that. You're not alone. We all go through that. You know, even myself, there'll be situations where, whoa, I feel inadequate. I walk in and it's Chick Corea band with John McLaughlin and I got to play. You know, these are people I listened to as a kid. I feel like I'm a kid again. So it's natural, but don't let it stop you.
Yeah.
Don't let it stop you. This is a thing that you want to learn how to work through.
Yep.
And you don't pay attention to what you don't have. You pay attention to what you do have. And you use that at its height. Especially if someone called you. They called you because, you know, you're capable of it. So getting rid of that insecurity thought, I don't know that it'll ever happen.
Okay.
I really don't know that it ever happens. But you can learn to deal with it better.
Sure.
And you're enough. Playing music, you don't have to be, it's 12 notes, especially if you're a bass player. You only got to play one of those 12.
Yeah.
You know, every chord, play one. It's easy.
Sure.
It's fun. It's just like when we talk, I don't have to use big words, and I use what I have. I can express myself with what I have. But a lot of the times we just get so nervous about it. And I believe it's because we don't think of it as a conversation. You know, you'll tell me what to play.
Sure. Your approach is like, it's refreshing because it's very positive. It's very encouraging for those, I'm sure, like we'll talk about Wooten camps. But in reality, you know, over the years, all of us have been in bands where it can be a little more toxic.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not that shared mentality, you know? And so that becomes, I would think, and I've experienced it, more challenging to apply that same type of logic when you have you know, the diva or the guy who wants to shred all day long, and it's not building each other up. What would you say to those or yourself in the past who have experienced things like that?
Yeah, that it doesn't matter what you say to me. You don't define who I am. So you get better at these situations by knowing who you are. When you know who you are, that you are enough, that you are capable. Maybe I'm not the best person for this job. I'll let you know. Hopefully I'll let you know before you tell me. You know, I get calls for gigs and I say, I don't know if I'm the best person for this. And I mentioned Chick Corea. Chick Corea called me for a gig and I thought he called the wrong Victor. Because he was asking me to do something that I don't do, which was play upright bass at the Blue Note. For one of his shows. He did eight weeks of shows at the Blue Note for his 75th birthday.
8 weeks?
8 weeks.
Wow.
Of band. 15 different bands over 8 weeks for his 75th birthday celebration. And I got called to play upright bass on one of the weeks.
Okay.
And when my manager called and told me that, I said, call Chick back. And let him know he called Victor Wooten. 'Cause maybe there's another Victor, a list of Victors, and he called the wrong one.
Sure.
Upright bass is not what I do. So I let him know I'm not the person.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to do it. So, okay. If he believes in me, I don't really believe in me yet, but I'm going to borrow his belief in me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best to make him happy because he
That's
believes in me. And that's an honor that Chick Corea believes in me.
Sure.
So I borrow his belief. But in some cases, in all cases, the more you know who you are will speak louder than what you think of me.
Sure.
Good or bad.
Okay.
good or bad. Some people, like right now, I'm having a little struggle. Some things I got to work on. I'm having a little disconnect between my brain and my hands. So I play a lot of things with one finger because making them work fluidly don't happen these days. So, but every night I still get the compliments. Oh, this is the best. I've never heard you better. And I say thank you because that's what you think. So I can't tell you you're wrong.
Right.
But I know I still got to work.
Yeah.
I could believe you and say, oh man, okay. But I know who I am, and I know there's some things I got to tighten up. And this is something I learned from my parents as a child. If you don't know who you are, other people will tell you.
Yeah.
And they may not tell you the truth. But knowing who you are, knowing that I got some work to do, or whatever, I think it starts there. And realize that whatever people tell you, good or bad, it's just what they think. Right? It's not really who you are. It's what they think. It's who you are to you is what really matters. And I would tell people to start there.
Okay. Well, you talk about influences. You talk about your mom. I know your family's played a significant part in your growth and your development as a person, as a musician.
As a person first.
I was kind of curious, just if even in short bursts, if you went through your brothers in particular, like I know Reggie's the teacher, right? From top to bottom for the band. But what would you, if you had to sum it up in just like a couple sentences for each brother, what would you say that if you looked at it high level, what they showed you and brought to you over all these years?
Yeah. Reggie was the main person that put an instrument in my hand and said, do this. But all my brothers were teachers. I'm the youngest of 5, so I had 4 older brothers who were like 4 extra parents for me. But more than music, they showed me how to be a good person. They were my examples. By today's standards, my parents, especially our mom, would be considered strict. Like just, okay, do this, don't do that, For us, it was just what it was. And when I look back on it now, I see it's how it should have been. And my 4 brothers helped me see, were my demonstration, my examples of how to do what was right, Because obeying my parents and doing what they said was one thing, because I didn't want to disappoint them, but probably even more, I didn't want to disappoint my brothers. Because they were and still are like superheroes to me. They were like 4 magical people that could do whatever they wanted. Music was normal. I was just growing up.
It's like 2, right? I mean, you had a...
Well, 2 is the earliest I can remember.
Yeah.
But they knew I was the bass player before I was born.
Sure.
They were already playing. They needed a bass player, so they knew.
Yeah.
So I've never not played bass as far as I know. That was just something we did every day and every weekend. So it wasn't a career plan. I didn't really consider myself a musician. I can remember being in whatever 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and all the little boys, we were going to be firemen or policemen. And I was quite a bit older when I found out I can just keep playing music, really, as like a career. I don't have to get a real job. It was eye-opening. And there was some curses behind that, too, because I quit trying hard throughout school, because I knew that my path was already out. My parents wouldn't let us get bad grades. So if we got a C, we had to have a talk.
Yep. Sit down.
And we probably had to wash dishes until that C was a B, next report card. But we were AB students. And always honor roll. We had to be. But my brothers taught me beyond music. Of course they taught me music, but it was how to live, we weren't allowed to argue. We could discuss, we could disagree. We didn't have to agree, but we couldn't argue. And me being the youngest, sometimes the youngest can try to get out of line. Feel like you got 4 other parents telling you what to do, so you can try to get out of line. I can remember a few times, and I can remember one time, I can't remember what it was. One time, my mom said something about Santa Claus, and I had learned that there was no Santa Claus. So I was like,
how old are we now?
I don't even remember. I don't know. I don't know, whatever age. I'm like, Mom, I ain't no Santa Claus, you know. And Mom was like, you don't believe in Santa? I'm like, no. She's like, well, good. I don't have to keep, you know, whatever, you know. But then, you know, and I felt like, yeah. But then Reggie, after a while, he said, Victor, I can't believe you said that to Mom. He said, I've been knowing for a long, but I ain't never said nothing. You know? And he explained to me what Santa Claus is about. And I was like, I felt so bad.
Yeah.
You know, and I was being tough. But my brothers would always bring me back to who I should be.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I say there were like 4 extra parents. And they each have their own role in it. Rudy, who most of you don't know, our saxophone playing brother, who passed away way too early in 2010. He was quiet, but if he said something, he was like my granddad or my grandma, who if they said something, you'd listen to it, you know. But boy, could he play some horn. And he could always solo through changes. When I was learning to walk a blues and play, you know, I was probably 8, 9 years old when the fusion scene hit, 7 or 8. So now I'm listening to Return to Forever and John McLaughlin and Miles Davis, and we're learning all this crazy stuff.
Yep.
And Rudy could just solo through it. And I'm like, how do you do that? You know, and he would just quietly say, you'll get it. Don't worry about it, you'll get it, you know.
He even did the 2 saxophones. Right?
Oh, he would solo through changes on 2 horns.
Yeah.
Going between unison to thirds. He played a C melody in one hand. Most horn players have forgot about the C melody. And he played an alto. So in if my knowledge is right, alto, I'm thinking of like the A. C melody, I'm thinking C. So he had these minor thirds all the time. But he could go from minor thirds to major thirds to unison and through changes. And he was doing this as a kid.
Where was he inspired by from that?
Russ Roland Kirk.
Okay.
Russ Roland Kirk, a blind saxophone player that played 3 saxes.
3.
Played 3. You can still look him up.
Wow, just kind of bounced.
Yeah. Yeah, he could play a drone on one and then he could switch.
Wow.
But Rudy only played 2 because we were poor.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Well, he was lucky to have 2. But he was just so good, so good. But he was also inspired by people like John Coltrane. You know, so the C melody was bigger than the alto, but not as big as a tenor that Coltrane played. But he could just solo, you know, with that big sound. But he could also get on the alto and be like Charlie Parker. But then he had the Rashawn Roland Kirk multiple horn thing. But we grew up listening to James Brown, so he was a Maceo guy too. Right. So he could get funky and soulful. And then we grew up in the 60s and the 70s where we had horn bands. A lot of horn bands. Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, Tower of Power, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Ohio Players. James Brown, the horn section. So he was our horn section. So he was so well-rounded between the jazz, between, I was going to say pop, but it wasn't called pop at the time. It was just popular. So it was Chicago and all that stuff. The pop radio stations played all the music as long as it was popular. So we got to hear it all.
Sure.
You know, and he was just, what an amazing horn player. So anyway, all my brothers, they have their own loves and likes and contributions to me. Sure. Yeah. And I learn and still learn a lot from all of them, including Rudy, who's no longer physically with us. Sure. But I'm still learning from him.
No, that's special. And you know, you're talking about the double saxes and all these different instruments. I know your brother Reggie at one point, I think maybe even initially played ukulele, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when we first started playing as a band, we were in Hawaii. Yep. And they actually taught ukulele in school. But it was Roy's class, the drummer, who was learning to play ukulele.
Oh, okay.
But he would bring it home, and he said Reggie could just pick it up and play it. Sure. Like, never learned. He just could play it. So everything he was learning, he said Roy would show Reggie something, and Reggie could just do it and add up to it. Right. So Reggie ended up taking over that ukulele.
And you got to tell me about the Fiddle Busch Gardens.
Ah, yeah, yeah. So life gives you blessings all the time, 100% of the time. It's a blessing, whether it looks that way or not. So this was a bad time in the brothers' lives. It was about the 4th or 5th time that we were supposed to make it. Someone was discovering the Wooten brothers. The first one was when we were opening for Curtis Mayfield on his Superfly tour when I was 6. Right? Barely in kindergarten, and we're doing the West Coast part of his tour, and he loved the Wooten brothers. Now, you got to think about it. We were 5 little kids from age, whatever, 6. If I was 6, Reggie was 14. and we've doing harmonies and got a show, and Roy would come off the drums and take the mic and do James Brown. Joe would get off the keys and get on the drum. And we're little, right? So he loved us. So, but it never happened, you know. And so this final one that was supposed to happen, we were recording a record for Arista Records. This producer was producing Whitney Houston's first record. He was producing an early record for Kenny G, and he was producing these 5 brothers, the Wooten brothers. So 2 of my brothers are actually on Whitney's first record and some early Kenny G records, because we were all, you know, at the studio at the same time with the same producer. But that was the birth of the 5 brothers for the first time in our lives, not playing together exclusively. So what ended up happening, the producer would go on tour with his new record, and 2 of our brothers, Roy on drums, Joseph on keys, would go on tour with him. So it's their first major tour, you know, as an adult. So 3 of us are at home, not a whole lot to do. I'm about 15, and some jobs open up. We hear about some jobs at this amusement park, Busch Gardens. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But I was too young to be in their live entertainment department. But at the last minute, they were desperate for a bluegrass fiddle player. And one of my brothers calls, well, he says, well, I got another, because a couple of my brothers had gotten jobs there. And they said, well, I got another brother. I'm sure he could play fiddle. All right, well, bring him in, you know. And I get a phone call, Vic, do you think you could learn to play fiddle? I was like, yeah. You know, so I went to my high school, borrowed a violin. And some kind of way, because this is before the internet, some kind of way I researched the top 3 fiddle tunes.
Okay.
One was Orange Blossom Special. One was Devil Went Down to Georgia. And I forgot what the third one was. It might have been like, well, you put down your fiddle and you put down your bow, pick up your shoes and you throw it on the floor, dance to the fiddle on the, whatever.
Sure,
Louisiana Saturday night. Maybe that one. But I learned them. And I went in an audition. It was horrible. But I won the audition. Yeah. And so I started at Busch Gardens as a bluegrass fiddle player.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I hate to hear what I was doing. It was horrible. But enough for this. I just learned enough for this show. You know, but I'll add this part in. In these amusement parks, they usually have 2 bands that do the same show. So the show can go all day. You know, we'll play the morning to the afternoon. The other team comes in, does afternoon to night, and then next week we switch. There was another fiddle player in the other band. His name was Kurt Story.
Okay.
Kurt was a real fiddle player.
Now, how old was Kurt?
Kurt's probably 5 or 6 years older than me.
Because you were how old?
I was 15 when I first started.
Okay,
so I did it
just his 20s.
I did fiddle for 15 to 16.
Sure.
So Kurt was probably, you know, 21, 22. He was young.
But he could play.
But he could play. And he would help me out. And Kurt is so pivotal in my adult life, because that's why I'm in Nashville now. That's how I met Bela Fleck. That's how I met all the great players in Nashville in the late 80s.
Through him.
Through him. I visited Kurt. I started Busch Gardens and I worked there on and off. Eventually I started playing bass there. On and off, I worked there from 81 to 87. I went to visit Kurt in Nashville for my first time in 87. He introduced me to everybody.
Oh, that's awesome.
He knew all the top musicians. Bela Fleck, great fiddle player, violinist Mark O'Connor. Edgar Meyer was in Nashville. Sure. Jerry Douglas, Sam Bush, Tony Ross. Just all the people at that time. And that's, to not tell the whole story, that's what led me to visiting Nashville again. Someone had heard me play, asked me to come and sub in her band for a month. That turned into staying there. So I figured, okay, the brothers aren't playing together right now. I'll stay in Nashville for a little while until our thing gets put back together, because the record is still not done. You know, I realize now our record was never supposed to get done. It was a way for the producer to just keep getting money from our budget and all of that stuff. But we learned a lot. I became a better musician because Busch Gardens was my first time having to play exclusively with other people. I had to learn how to play with other people.
Outside of the
brothers. In 87, I met my wife. You know, some of my best friends I met at Busch Gardens. It gave me the Bela Fleck connection, my whole Nashville connection. One by one, my brothers moved to Nashville with me.
Awesome.
So now we're all there, and life is great, you know. So I owe a lot to Busch Gardens. And to cap off with what I started with, that curse of the brothers' record deal falling apart, we weren't playing together, actually made our lives better. I became a much better musician having to learn how to play with other people. Learning a style of music that I would have said I hated, bush, bluegrass, country. I mean, that's easy.
Yeah.
I found out how hard it was. The notes are easy. The feel you got to learn.
No, that's
At first, I was
amazing
a funk bass player playing bluegrass.
Right.
And you heard it. I didn't know. Everybody else did. But I'm better now. Again, I met my wife, 4 beautiful kids, been married 29 years, and life is great. And the brothers are still playing together.
Yeah.
Arista Records doesn't even exist.
That's right.
Right? We've outlived the producer, the record label, and we're still going.
Standing strong, record label, book author. I mean, you're a busy guy. So you mentioned Nashville too. I mean, you now are embedded, entrenched in that city. It means a lot to you. And why don't you tell us about Wooten Woods, your music camp, and all that you guys are doing on down there?
Sure. So once I was in Nashville, again, I was meeting the greats. I didn't start from the bottom up. My friend Kurt introduced me to the top players. And because Bela Fleck and I hit it off, I became in with all these great people, and I'm learning lessons. You know, I remember Sam. I'm a funky bass player playing bluegrass, and I'm going boom, and Sam Bush, greatest mandolin player ever.
Gosh,
he says, Victor, maybe don't put in that backbeat. He said, that's my job. I'm the back. Okay, and he could have told me in a much meaner way.
Sure.
But he was nice.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting these pointers, and I'm really learning the music. But then in many cases, they would let me add what I do to it. And also because that's what they were doing to bluegrass. They had a band called the Newgrass Revival. So they were taking bluegrass and making it new. And then I was making it funky.
Yeah.
And they would let me in most cases do that. So I was learning a whole lot. And Mark O'Connor, one of the greatest violinist fiddle players ever. He was also a skateboarding champ at one point. He had a world record in skateboarding. We did a few shows with Mark O'Connor, Michael, who's a character in my book. I talk about the music lesson. There's a character named Michael. He's a real guy. Michael, with my friend Kurt Story mixing, we did a few shows riding skateboards and in a parking lot and playing while the audience is around for an outdoor music festival. That's how crazy Mark is, and Michael and myself. But being in with these people, I started learning a whole lot more than I ever thought. Mark O'Connor was doing a thing called fiddle camps. Out in the woods, fiddle players. And he had teachers. I'm like, this is really cool. At the same time, I was taking outdoor nature classes, how to live off the land. A lot of our ancestors' skills that they knew, how to stay warm in the winter, how to make huts out of trees and brush, how to rub sticks together and make fire, stuff like that.
Sure.
I got interested in that in the early 90s, so I was taking classes. And so between this man, Tom Brown Jr., who was teaching the nature classes, and Mark O'Connor's fiddle camps, I said, I want to do this for bass players. But I love this nature element. I'm going to bring the nature element in. So in the year 2000, I started my first camp, and I called it, like I still call it, a bass/nature camp. Because I found out how much nature is needed in our lives. And how much it's there, but we don't pay attention to it. And when you do, your life is enhanced. In other words, if you see a little kid who's naturally good at something, I say naturally, you call that person a natural. And what does that mean? What you're really saying is that person's like nature. Right? You don't see a tree out there trying to grow, right? A beaver doesn't have to practice building a dam. They just do it one day. A squirrel knows how to build a nest. A bird builds a nest with its beak. I can't do that. They're just natural. So in many cases, we practice so much that we lose our natural instincts and ability. Right? So wow, we don't have to lose. I didn't learn music through being unnatural. And nature was making me be more natural. So what if I put that with music education? And I knew if I put that on a website, people may not come. And I knew people would come, and there were no bass camps at the time. So I knew people would be coming for me because of bass. But we're going to sneak this other stuff in there. And people loved it.
Did they?
They were like, I've never seen anything like this.
Did you do like a 50-50 split out of the gate, or was it like?
No, not 50-50, no. The way we did it, I knew that most people would be coming because of me. So I had heard about these tennis camps, like where you go to a tennis pros camp, but you barely see the person.
Sure.
You might see him at lunch or get to take a photo. I didn't want that. I wanted
Engage.
people. Yeah, I kind of wanted people to get sick of me, like, because I'm there so much, literally. So I become normal.
Yeah.
But what I found out is I never become normal. They raise up to my level.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's like they put me up on the pedestal and they realize that they're on the pedestal too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is cool. And a lot of it is because of the nature stuff. We live together at these camps 24/7. I don't want your instrument in your hands 24/7. So I find things that I think are good for you. For when your instrument's out of your hand, let's go do this. And I'm there with you 24/7. So, but now my wife and I purchased some property in 2007 or 8. Now, since 2008, I think our camp has been on our own property, a place we call Wooten Woods, a little west of Nashville, Tennessee, 150 acres on the Duck River. And so we have a lot of space. We can play late and loud.
Sure.
And we have everything you need. The stage is there, cabins, the bathhouse, full kitchen with an amazing chef. Our chef likes to cook lobster on the first night, just to shock people. What? We're in the woods at a camp eating lobster? For real. It's really, really cool. I'm there. We have a great staff, amazing staff, and we always have surprise guests, people you didn't know were showing up. And it could be Bootsy Collins, Stanley Clarke, Marcus Miller. Wow. It could be anybody.
Yeah.
You know, Dennis Chambers has been a few times, the comedian Sinbad. It could be anybody.
Nice.
But it's an amazing thing, and don't talk about it a lot, just let it happen. But it's really like a life-enhancing camp.
Sure.
But we do it through music because our parents made it clear to us as kids, if we're spending all this time, money, effort, sweat on playing music, it should make you better as a person.
Yeah.
It should make whoever hears you better as a person.
I totally agree.
You know, if you're doing all this stuff and it's only for you, you know? So the camp is about that. That's not on the website.
Yeah. It's hard to put that into words.
It would be easy to put it into words, but I think more people wouldn't come.
Yeah.
Because I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I can talk about it. So I could put it on the website. But let you find out. Just come. Come to play bass. Come to play sax. Whatever instrument, we'll take you. But you're going to get a whole lot more than that. Yeah.
Well, you heard the invitation here, folks. So
all
check out Wooten Woods. Yeah.
All instruments. Tap dancing, whatever. The goal is not to play an instrument. The goal is to play music.
Yeah.
You play through the instrument. But a lot of people learn that we get stuck right here. Our presence doesn't surpass the instrument. Right? But when we talk with this instrument, we don't pay attention to it. We're that good at it that we forget it's there. And it's not about the instrument. I don't say that I speak mouth, right?
Right.
I speak through it.
Sure.
I need the instrument, but I'm at my best when I'm not thinking about it.
Yep.
It's the same here. So we work hard to get you through it. And in many cases, you don't know how we're doing it. You don't even know that we're doing it. And that's the nature exercises that get you into you. And what do you have to say?
Absolutely.
And it's not said here. Right?
Well, full circle. I mean, it comes right back to the top of the interview, which was with you and Mike Stern. And it's the dialogue.
Absolutely.
And it was you put the practice in, but then there comes a time where it goes aside. Yeah. And you just have the conversation.
Yeah. You're good.
Yeah, so we definitely, we wish you the best with Wooten Woods. And it was such a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you so much, Victor.
It's great. Always great to be with you all. Thank you.
A big thank you to Victor for being here with us today. Make sure to like and subscribe for more artist content like this.